Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu khataman nabiyyin wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Building Bridges Between the Faiths only on Hilaal TV. Yes, this is the program that brings about understanding between the faiths, finding the common ground between the faiths. And this is the program that speaks factual stuff. We give evidence from the Holy Scriptures, the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, the Quran, and if it need be other scriptures, if we're talking about them, or historical facts, but not opinions and interpretations. So, we want to find that common ground. If you look at our one of our main slides, we are all the children of Adam. And this, our whole philosophy is built on the tree of humanity that you see there. We are all children of Adam, one single original parents, and from there the different nations, tribes, and the different communities emerged, and different branches. And the Abrahamic branch, we say Jews, Muslims, and Christians are the Abrahamic family. But if we're not on the Abrahamic branch, we're on the other branch, we are still on the tree of humanity. And that's why we say that, Islam says we are one humanity. All of us, no matter what tribe, what religion, what race, humanity is one family. And that's what this program is all about. That's what we want to build. We agree to disagree. And it's not an indictment on any faith or any community. We merely mention the facts. But the aim and of this program is to build the bridges of understanding. Last episode, I'm just recapping. In particular, we spoke about the Prophet, peace be upon him. When he reached Medina Munawwara after he did the Hijrah, there were different other communities staying there. There were a lot of Jewish tribes who were not in Makkah, while he was 13 years in Makkah doing his da'wah. But in Medina, there were a lot of Jewish tribes and other Christian tribes and communities, and he brought them all together. And we spoke about this, and he set up the first constitution of Medina, if you look at this slide, and we went in detail last episode. Anyone who's interested, you can write to us, and compliments of IFRI and Hilaal TV, we can send them to you. We also then spoke about the agreement that the Prophet, peace be upon him, made with the Christians of Najran. In his time, they came to Medina Munawwara to him, and they said, we want to remain under your protection, under Islam and under you, because you are a just man. And we see that Islam really doesn't just say by words that Muslims, Jews, and Christians are an Abrahamic family, but in practice, you treat us well like that. And so both these documents, as I said, are available. At the end of the episode, we will give you our last segment, we'll give you our details, and you're welcome to write to us, free of charge, compliments of IFRI and Hilaal TV, info@ifri.com, as you see there, or call us 074-560-1786, and we will gladly send it to you. Then we also spoke about how after the Prophet, peace be upon him, not only in his time, his successors, the Khulafai Rashidin after him, they carried on with that same principles and the same ethos. And if we did that, the Prophet Umar, the Khalif Umar after the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he conquered Jerusalem, he granted the Jews and Christians freedom of the religion as well. And we went into detail about that, where he refused to pray in the church, in Jerusalem, the church of the Holy Sepulchre, and in Bethlehem, in the Church of the Nativity, he was offered, but he said no. And he built his masjid opposite these two, the two holiest churches in Christendom. But he built a masjid opposite and made salah there, so that he says, this is guaranteeing that we're not going to usurp, although we are now the controlling power here in Jerusalem. But we were told by our Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quran commands us in Surah Hajj to allow religious freedom. Now, I just want to go quickly, if you look at the next slide, what happened after that? I'm just going to a brief history, because what we are talking about is the relationship between Jews, Muslims, and Christians. How was it? Is it only that it was in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, or in the Khulafa al-Rashidin? Now, if you look at this, look at the Crusader period. You'll find that after, even before the Crusaders came, from the year 750 to the year 974 Christian era, there was the Abbasid dynasty. The Abbasid dynasty was ruling, and they still carried on the same principle of living in harmony and granting religious freedom to the Jews and Christians. But then the Crusaders came and upset everything, and we'll talk more about the Crusades later on in this episode. By Pope Urban II, the Crusaders came and violently, blood, in a very bloody war, they killed the Jews and Christians and Muslims at that time that were there. They were Coptics and they were not Catholics. It started by the Pope, who were Catholic Christians. Then you had the Ayyubi period. I'm just going quickly, 1187 to 1259. The Muslim. These are Muslim dynasties that were ruling. And then, Salahuddin in the third round of the Crusades, he came and recaptured Jerusalem. He defeated the Crusaders, and he brought peace and harmony again. And then after him, there was the Mamluk period, and the Mamluk, they were from Egypt, the 1250 to 1516, the Mamluk dynasty from Egypt, and they, they kept this harmony. So what I'm getting at, I'm showing you, because this program is about, many religions. We are now bringing them together and building the bridges between the various faiths. Isn't that what we? And we say Islam guarantees this. It was guaranteed by the Quran and practiced by the Prophet ﷺ, guaranteed by him. He made treaties and gave them agreements to this effect to the Jews and Christians, and it carried on to the Khulafa al-Rashidin period. And after them, the Ayyubi dynasty and the Mamluk dynasty, right to the year 1250 AD, which means from the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So what we are trying to say, for 7 centuries, for 700 years, Muslims were ruling this area of Palestine and wherever the Muslims were, but they applied this principle of religious harmony and granting the other religions their right to practice and living and giving them the rights for the church and the temples and the synagogue. Now, isn't that something interesting? Why I'm mentioning this is because look at what's going on currently in Palestine. Look at what the Israeli government, the extreme Zionist Israeli government, and I don't want to say Jewish government, it's more Zionism, because as much as they want to equate it, this Netanyahu and his regime, they want to equate Zionism with Judaism. It is not. We know, those who know the facts of history, Zionism is a secular philosophy that was created in 1895 by Theodor Herzl, by European Ashkenazis, Jews, who they are not Bani Israel. They were not from the soil of Palestine. So I'm showing you, as I'm going to go more into this episode, to show you historically what went wrong. If when Muslims ruled Jerusalem, then how is it that everything went wrong again? When did the conflict start? Look at the conflict that we are going through right now. And that was because of what we see here, the next slide, the Crusade Wars. While Muslims were controlling, you had Pope Urban, from Italy, the Pope, the Catholic Pope, in the year 1096 till 1099. He took the army, the Christian army, and he went and invaded and killed, and with military might, he galvanized the army in Europe as the Pope, who was heading everything. He had all the influence. He was sort of politically and religiously had that authority and influence in Europe, and they went and killed, and by force, butchered the Muslims, butchered the Jews that were there in Palestine, in Jerusalem, and conquered Jerusalem in a bloody war. And then that all went up to many episodes, many rounds of crusade wars, which we will go and talk about when we come back from the break. I'm trying to tell you, keep this in mind, what I'm saying. It is the Christian world, the then Catholic Christian world. It was the only major authority in the world. They were the ones who came and upset the balance and came with a killing machine called the Crusade Wars. They started the hostility against the peace and harmony where Jews, Muslims, and Christians were living in harmony in Palestine for the last 700 years. They were living in peace and harmony, and there comes the Christian Crusaders to upset that harmony. So keep it locked on. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, if we look at, the slide that we, before the break, if you look at this Crusade War slide, I'm just summarizing this. These are, you can do episodes and many episodes just on the Crusade Wars, and these are all recorded in history. Can you see there were 9 rounds? Second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round. That means the crusade was were from the year 1096 till the 9th round, 1272, which means that almost for 200 years. For 200 years, there was this fighting and killing going on in Palestine. Hello, this is where we're talking about right now. 1,000 years later, 1,000,000 years later, it is the same story that is carrying on in Palestine that was started by the Christian Crusaders in the year 1095 by Pope Urban. But at the third crusade round, Salahuddin Ayyubi, if you look at that clip, at 1189 to 1192, he was a Muslim leader from Iraq, and he decided enough is enough, and I'm going to take an army and challenge these Christian Crusaders and bring back the peace and harmony that was there when Muslims were ruling. For 700 years they were ruling, and that harmony and peace, I want to bring it back. And you won't believe it, he succeeded. He succeeded in defeating the Crusaders, Richard the Lionheart. We know that history. There was even a movie made about this by American, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott made called The Kingdom of Heaven. He made a movie. You saw it in Ster-Kinekor and all these movie houses, where he shows how Salahuddin Ayyubi, as a Muslim leader, he did the same principle he applied, as was applied by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave amnesty and granted protection and religious freedom to the Jews and Christians, same as the Caliph Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, God be pleased with him, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, when he conquered Jerusalem, he granted nobody was killed, no religious institution, buildings were destroyed, and he brought about peace and harmony. Salahuddin Ayyubi, despite what the Crusaders did, despite the gruesome killings that the Crusaders meted out to the Muslims and the Coptic Christians and the Jews at that time, he granted amnesty and he granted religious freedom, and he said we must live in harmony again. So this is something interesting. This is showing you, because remember when the Prophet, peace be upon him, made that agreement with the bishops of Najran, and he made that covenant with them. He says, every Muslim leader, my successors that come after me, they must guarantee this religious freedom to the bishops, the Christian group that is from Najran. They must be able to be free to practice, don't oppress them, and don't do any injustice to them, and which the Crusaders didn't adhere to that, the Catholic Crusaders. Now, when I'm saying this, I've not got anything against Catholics or Christians. We are just mentioning the facts of what happened. When a Christian is wrong, well, the Christian is wrong. If a Muslim is wrong, well, the Muslim is wrong. Yeah, you're going to tell me about, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which is killing innocent people and destroying the churches. Well, that's wrong also. Even if it's a Muslim doing it wrong, you got to say it is, you got to call them out. Because in Islam, justice, you must stand up for justice, even if it be against your own kind, your own tribe, your own family even. You have to stand up for what is right. And this is the principle in Islam which was practiced. Sadly, this is being slowly eroded. This has long been eroded, from the Judeo-Christian world. It's my tribe and my clan, over everything else. Not what's right and wrong anymore. Even if my tribe and my clan is wrong, I'll still side with them. No. The world can only be transformed back to a better place is when people stand for what is right. Now, look, recently, with all the genocide in Gaza, I'm just saying we've got to balance it. It's not that we are for or against any group, a religious group or political group or national group. Look we got to give credit to Macron. We got to give credit to France, to Britain, to UK. We got to give credit to Australia and all these countries, Spain, and there's too many to mention. What they did, they stood up against America and Israel. They broke away. They were in alliance with them. In other words, it was their clan. It was the Judeo-Christian world. It was the Judeo-Christian world. And all these years they were siding with them. Although they were doing wrong, they were siding with them, the EU, the European countries. But they came to a realization. And again, we thank the people of Gaza that they had opened the moral consciousness of eyes of the world. They opened the moral conscious eyes of the world who was ignoring it, but people could not ignore it anymore. And we have to give credit again when we talk about the West and with Americans and we talk about Britons and French and European, we mustn't generalize. We mustn't generalize because the largest turnout, the largest pro-Palestinian protests were done in those same European countries. In those same European countries, the governments may have been in cahoots with the wrongdoers. The governments of those countries, like the government of Muslim countries even are in cahoots right now. You're not standing up for what is right. And you got to call them out, the governments of the Muslim lands and the governments of these Judeo-Christian countries who were siding with Israel and America, who were doing the wrong thing. But we got to give credit. The largest protests against this came from the people in the West, from Christians in the West who stood up, and Jews. There are many Jews who were also opposing. You do a survey right now. If you do a survey right now in America, surveys have shown that a majority of young, Jews in America are against their government and are protesting against what the government. Yet they are Jews. Leave alone the Christians in America who's opposing their own government and Trump and the Christian right wing, the evangelical Christians who are brainwashed into supporting Israel, right or wrong. This chosenness, this thing of chosen people, while I'm at it, this program, we want to build the bridges, but if you want to build bridges, you have to give the facts and the truth. We must come to the truth. Don't listen to who's saying it. Is a Muslim saying it? Is a Jewish man saying it? Is a blue man or a black man or a white man? Don't worry who's saying it. Listen to what is being said. If what is being said is the truth, then we have to support it. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. So here the point we are making is that according to the facts on the ground, right? That we got to accept that there are Jews and Christians in the Judeo-Christian world right now who were the biggest opponents of Zionism and Israel and American right-wing evangelical Christians and the policy that Trump was meting out. But they have supported it, and things are now taking a different turn. So you can see when you stand up for what is right, it makes a difference. The Quran says, وَقُدْ جَاءَ الْحَقِّ وَذَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. That when truth comes against falsehood, when you bring وَقُدْ جَاءَ الْحَقِّ, when the truth comes and confronts batil, when you bring the truth to confront the wrong and the evil, إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا, that falsehood will vanish, that falsehood will disappear, that falsehood will be defeated. And that's what we are witnessing right now. And we thank the people of Gaza who brought this truth. Although they paid a high price, the suffering was so much, but they brought the truth. They exposed the cruelty. And doesn't it remind you? Now, why I'm talking all this is linked to the relationship we need to build. Even now, no matter what happened, this is the quality of Muslims. When Salahuddin Ayyubi Rahmatullahi, when he went back and conquered Jerusalem, he didn't say, oh, you crusaders, you butchered and killed our people, your horses were running in the blood of Christians, and therefore I'm going to do the same to you. He says, no, we don't believe in revenge. Sadly, Netanyahu and Netanyahu and his right-wing government, they are meeting out, you know, this hatred, and they're meeting out this revenge. If you are a religious person, you don't take revenge. The Prophet ﷺ, after conquering Mecca, after all that they did to him, and they thought that they're going to punish his opponents, who was his family and his kith and kin, they thought he's going to punish them. And what are you going to do with us? And the Prophet ﷺ said, I forgive you. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. I have been sent as a mercy to the world, and he forgave them. And that every successful true Muslim leader applied that same principle. So yes, keep it locked on. We'll be back, pay some bills, and we'll come after the break. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So let's go back to that slide just before the break on the Crusade Wars. And you'll know, if you look at that slide, at the third round of the Crusade Wars, you see there at the bottom, Salahuddin, 1189 to 1192. So Salahuddin Ayyubi brought everything back to normal. He made peace. See, when Muslim comes, they make peace. And then, but after that, look what happened. They went and attacked. The Christians came back, the Crusaders, they attacked again Jerusalem. They defeated the Muslims, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, till for the next 100 years. For the next 100 years, there was problems again, carried on by the Crusaders. And then what happened? Then in 1516, the Ottomans took over. The Ottoman Empire came, right? So that's 300 years later. When the Ottomans they defeated the superpowers at the time, and the Ottomans were ruling Jerusalem. When Ottomans came in, who were Muslims, things became calm again. They brought again, peace and harmony. And they carried on the same principles of the Prophet ﷺ, of religious harmony and tolerance, and Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala, the second Caliph of Islam, and Salahuddin Ayyubi rahmatullahi, they brought it back again to the extent that they allowed the Jewish areas to be built. They gave this wall. By the way, I want to say something. You know this Wailing Wall where the Jews are going and they go to the Wailing Wall? Do you know? Go and do some history on this. Who granted this Wailing Wall to the Jews? You remember the temple was destroyed. They claim it is the remnants of the Solomon's temple, which it is not. It's another topic. Inshallah, in this series, we got a lot of things to discuss. We can do a few series on the Temple of Solomon, inshallah, from the point of the Judeo-Christian and Islamic perspective. The Old Testament, the Torah, the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, Quran. We can do 2-3 episodes on the Temple of Solomon. But in this, particularly this wall, which is not the remnants of the Temple of Solomon, but leave that aside. That wall was granted to the Jews by the Ottoman Caliphate. The Ottoman Caliphate, I think his name was Suleiman the Magnificent, they told him, look, you Christians got your churches, you got the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you got so many churches, you got the Church of the Nativity, the Muslims, you got your Al-Aqsa Masjid, you got the Umar Masjid, the Dome of the Rock there. We got nothing. Give us something. And it is under the Ottoman Khilafah that they wanted to be near that the Al-Aqsa Masjid. They wanted to be near. So he granted them that wall. Hello? It is a Muslim again. It is a Muslim Khalifa. It is under the Ottoman Muslim rule that the Jews were given that wailing wall for them to have a holy place. Because you remember the Romans in the year 70 AD, the Roman Emperor destroyed every sign and every vestige of Jewish existence in Jerusalem. He wiped it out completely. I don't want any sign or any trace of Jewish presence in Jerusalem. That was the instruction from the Roman Emperor, right? And the temple was destroyed, not even at the foundation level. Even the foundation had to be taken out. Yes, the foundation of the temple had to be taken out. Nothing must be left, no trace. But it is when Sayyidina Umar came. Remember when Umar conquered Jerusalem, right? When he came back there, you know, when the Muslims conquered, he brought the Jews back. He found no Jews there. He created a Jewish area. Salahuddin Ayyubi brought them back again there. And he gave them the place again and the rights to worship. And then again, when the Ottomans came, they did the same. But look at today, in the name of Judaism, which we know Zionism is not Judaism. Look how they're treating. Look at how many masajids they have destroyed. Look how many churches they have destroyed. They're not only destroying masjids, they are also destroying the Christian, and they're trying to wipe Christianity. There are so few left in any case. But I've been to Jerusalem. I've been to churches which were bombed and destroyed. Even in Gaza, one of the oldest churches, the Catholic church that was in Gaza, they didn't spare that as well. This current Netanyahu government, and in the name of, what you want to call it, the Jews will tell you, not in my name. And this Trump and America is supporting them because they're getting money for the arms. The more arms Israel buys for them, the more business for America's arms industry. So it's about money. So let's come back to what we're talking about. Well, I'm trying to show you that whenever Muslims ruled this place or anywhere in the world, they brought peace and harmony. Unlike the propaganda that is being made that Muslims are terrorists and Muslims are intolerant to other religions and they do not allow other religions their right to practice. Let's go back to the slide. I'm fast forwarding now. After this story in Jerusalem, right, and then after all that, the British mandate, World War I and World War II came in, and then the British mandate in 1917 and the Balfour Declaration, because Britain beat the Ottomans, Britain beat Turkey, and they're ruling Jerusalem, and they allowed the Jews under the Balfour Declaration to come back into to Palestine and to displace the Palestinians, the Nakba. They used terrorist groups and they kicked the Palestinians out into neighboring states and they took over the land. And in 1948, they divided Jerusalem, the city into two, right, Muslim sector and what? They call it East and West Jerusalem. And in 1967, the Israeli government annexed Jerusalem. They say it belongs to them. What they are talking about, the eternal capital of the Jews. Hello? Whenever Muslims ruled Jerusalem, they gave everyone, Jews, Christians, and every other faith. Must know there are so many Christian denominations. You don't only have Catholics there. You don't only have Protestants there. You have the old Orthodox churches that were there also. The Armenian churches. Do you know right now the Muslims granted all the sects of Christianity their right to have their churches. But here comes Zionism and it upsets everything again. It was done by the Crusaders. They came and upset the peace and harmony between the people who were living in Palestine. Jews, Christians, and Muslims were living for over 5-6 centuries under Muslim rule. There was harmony. The Crusaders, the Christian Catholic Crusaders, came and created the conflict. And then when they left, Salahuddin Ayyubi came and restored peace and harmony. But it didn't last long. In a few years' time, the Crusaders came again, and back to square one. All the conflict started. And then it happened now with the creation of Zionism. With the creation of Zionism in 1895, with the cahoots, with the cooperation and of Britain and the backing up of Britain, they allowed the creation of a Jewish state. Yet there were two things that were said. Now I'm bringing this to show you the root of the conflict. You know why? Whenever we talk about this, the first thing the Western media, the first thing that the Jews and in Israel, and the first thing that the Zionists will tell you about, you believe October 7th. You accept that October 7th was the biggest attack that we were given, and all this started at October 7th. Hello? Everything did not start in October 7th. What am I proving you with all this history? This conflict did not start on October 7th. This conflict was there. Jerusalem was under conflict. We'll show you in the next segment that Jerusalem was a land, from the beginning, a land of conflict. But if you talk about Jewish history, if you're talking about Jewish history in particular, the Jewish history, they were expelled twice from Jerusalem. If you say it is your promised land and God gave you the promised land, then why God removed you from the promised land? First by the Babylonians, right, before Christ, and then again you were taken off by the Roman Emperor 70 years after Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. You were expelled. It is the Muslims that brought you back there into Jerusalem and to live in peace and harmony. So I'm trying to show you that whenever either the Christian or the Jews took over, it was conflict. And that's a conflict we are still witnessing. And we still say, if you allow Muslims to rule, Jerusalem was given to be the capital city that belonged to the Muslims in that agreement. But anyway, we'll take a break. When we come back from the break, we will go into the last segment, and keep your pens ready. We'll give you our details to contact us for your comments and your questions. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To this last segment of this episode, building bridges between the faiths. And we were busy discussing about Jerusalem and Palestine. And there were two things that the Balfour Declaration mentioned. And I'm trying to tell you, it did not happen, this problem in October 7th, right, 2023. No. This problem started in 1947. It started in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration. The Jews were being persecuted in Europe, not only with Hitler. They were persecuted in Europe. And you'll find that in 1948, after the Balfour Declaration, when they declared themselves an independent state, the Balfour Declaration guaranteed two states. It guaranteed a place for the Jews, but not to disturb the Palestinians who were staying there. It's nothing to do with now, it was not a Muslim conflict. It was the Palestinians versus those Jews, the Ashkenazis, who are coming from Europe, because Europe was killing them. Europe was oppressing them. Russia was oppressing them. Wherever the Jews were in the diaspora, remember we said in 70 years after Isa alayhi salam, all the Jews were expelled. Remember we said that? The Jews were expelled because of the wrongdoings, and they wanted to kill Isa alayhi salam and all the things that they were doing. This is a second time now. The first time Allah expelled them, before Isa alayhi salam, 400 BC, the Babylonians came, the king. Allah sent the Babylonian king and took them back into captivity into Babylon. Now I'm talking about 70 AD. Because of what the wrongs they did, they were expelled. Where did they go? They did not, the Roman emperor's instruction was, any Jew you find in Jerusalem, in Palestine must be a dead Jew. It must be a dead Jew. I'm not saying this, that he's right, but I'm saying what was the instruction. And they had to run for their life. They had to flee for their life. Where did they go to? They went to the neighboring Arab states, right? Neighboring countries, Jordan, Egypt. They went to Turkey. They went to Greek islands. From there into Europe. They had to run. They went to Ethiopia, right? That's why there's some Jews still there. And the Arabs said, Ahlan wa sahlan. You are our cousins. Come, we will give you homage. We will give you. You see, Muslims were always hospitable to them. Look at what they're doing in return today, right? So, but I must say, it's this racist, extremist, Netanyahu's right-wing, extremist, Zionist government, which is supported by the extreme right-wing Christian evangelical people in America and in the West, who slowly, I think, are starting to realize that they have been backing the wrong horse. So let's come back to what we're talking about. So the problem started from then. It didn't start on October the 7th, 2023. They were supposed to say that Jerusalem must be an international city. There must be, it must belong, because they knew, this was the Balfour Declaration, this was the agreement at the League of Nations, that Jerusalem must not belong to, the Jews can't take it over, the Israeli government can't take it over, because it is an international zone. It will remain an international zone because it is open to all. So that was the first thing. And the second thing, they said that they must make sure that although they're going to create a homeland for themselves, because the Europeans and the Russians were giving them hard time, and Hitler was giving them hard time, and the Pope was giving them hard time with the Jewish programs in Europe. I don't want to go into detail. If I have to sit now and go through the facts, you want to know the facts? Hello? You want to know the facts? Do you want to know how many countries in Europe removed, expelled the Jews from the countries? Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, UK, all these other countries around in Europe. There's a whole list of how many of them kept expelling the Jews from their countries. They didn't want them. Austria and all these countries, they say, we don't want the Jews. I'm talking about in Europe. We don't want you in our country. They were expelled within Europe itself. And so they were having a problem. And what they did, they took that problem that they created in Europe, and they came and dumped it on the poor Palestinians. They said, let's bring it here, and we'll put them here, and let them all come over here. And that's how this conflict. So this conflict did not start on 7th of October 2023. This conflict started in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration. It started before that in 1895 with the creation of the Zionist movement, whose aim was to get the European Jews, the Ashkenazis, who are not Bani Israel, back into the Palestine, and they displaced the Palestinians. And hello, the Palestinians that were there were not just Muslims. Maybe the Muslims were in the majority, but they were Jewish Palestinians, there were Christian Palestinians and Muslim Palestinians living, and other groups at the time in Palestine. And the second point that they made, that you must not disturb the existence and the government and the system that was existing with the Palestinians. They had a government, by the way. Prior to Balfour Declaration, go and look at the archives. The Ottomans, remember we said the Ottomans were ruling? Up to that point, the Muslim Ottoman Empire was ruling Jerusalem before this 1917 Balfour Declaration. Go into the archives. I went physically into Bethlehem. I'm giving an example. We were the guests. We were invited by the mayor of Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the town where Jesus, peace be upon him, was born. Bethlehem, right? So we went there, and we were the guest of the mayor of Bethlehem, but two things I want to tell you about Bethlehem. The Church of the Nativity is there. The mayor told us, I am a Christian. I want you all to listen to this. Who was a Christian, I have the photos, I have all the records of this, what I'm saying. I'm a Christian mayor in Bethlehem. But in Bethlehem, the majority of people in Bethlehem are Muslims. But the Muslims voted for me as a Christian to be the mayor of Bethlehem. I'm talking something that's right now happening. Because the Jews can't have it, the Zionists couldn't influence that. There is a harmony between the Muslims and Christians in Palestine. And that's what they want to destroy. You see? So number two, he was showing us how that Bethlehem, over its period, how under the Ottoman rule, things were running so smooth. There was such harmony and peace. It's only, he himself is saying, as a Christian mayor, that is only when the Zionist government took over in 1947, the problem started. Look at the big wall they built, that big apartheid wall they built around Jerusalem and around Bethlehem. Look at that, what they have done. So those are the two things they went against, even the Balfour Declaration. They have annexed. Jerusalem was not supposed to be annexed. But in 1967, they went against the League of Nations. They went against the agreement and annexed it in 1960. They went against the ruling of the British mandate, which told them they must not disturb the system of government and the existence of the Palestinians. And we know the history. Slowly, they started bulldozing and terrorizing the Palestinians off their land, and today they moved them into West Bank and the Palestinians into the small strip in Gaza, and they took over everything else. So yes, dear listeners, dear viewers, what I'm trying to tell you is that it's time we must not just harbor this. We should not harbor this. We must forgive the past and move forward, because Muslims, Jews and Christians lived in harmony in Palestine till the creation of Zionism in 1895 and after the creation of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which caused it. The problem started not on the 7th of October, but we want to start a new page. Muslims have done that in the past. We showed magnanimity. We need to bring it back. So, we need to bring back the harmony, we need to bring back justice, and you cannot have peace without justice. And we hope that the world will wake up to this. Take our details there, write to us, let's build the bridges that we have of understanding between one another. Let's, build the bridges between the faiths. Write to us, info@ifri.com, iifri.com. You can WhatsApp us 07456017786. We can send you free of charge compliments of Hilaal TV and Ifri, those clips. We can send you the documents. We can send you the slides, the historical slides that you want. We do courses. We offer courses. If you want to learn about basics of Islam, send us your comments and send us your questions. We'll be gladly, let it be a two-way interaction, inshallah. And if you want to have something to contribute, we can even bring you onto the program. You could be from a Jewish faith, the Christian faith. We're going to be bringing guests onto this program. As this program unfolds, we're going to have Jewish guests, Christian guests, Hindu guests on our program, because it is a program building what bridges between the faiths. So we'll bring the other faiths as well and show what is the common ground. Till we meet again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.